For both of you, now that you've had a week to kind of reflect on things, just your overarching thoughts on year one for you, Sheldon, and on this year overall for you, Tom.
Well, over the summer or last spring, actually probably close to a year ago, when we brought Sheldon on board, the goal was to create a standard that playoffs are a year-in, year-out thing. And when you look back, yeah, it was disappointing being knocked out in 5 games. But when you look at the big picture, there's still a lot of growth for this team to grow. But we're not going to kick to the curb, making the playoffs was a subpar season, because it wasn't. It was a goal of ours right from the get-go. Sheldon's never not made the playoffs, so those standards and expectations were heightened for sure. So, no, I think again looking back, I think it was a good year. Now, was it a great year? No, it was disappointing. We got knocked out in 5 games, but the fun part is start to build around what we've created here.
Sheldon, specifically digging in this year, I'm curious, as you've looked back now on over the last week, was there anything in particular you can pinpoint that maybe changed, or that you're trying to figure out where your team went from that December stretch where it was playing such dominant hockey, then the break came and never quite got back to that again?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that's going to be a big project for the summer to really dig in. There's surface level things that come to mind, and there's things that you feel as you go through it, but for me, we got to dig a little bit deeper on that. I would say the overriding thought for me, though, is, if I reflect on where we were a year ago coming in here, for me, I really wanted to work to establish a foundation that we could build upon to be a consistent contender in the playoffs and making the playoffs consistently. And then building out our game from there and giving us every chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. And for me, when I look back, if I'm looking at the positive part of it, I look at that. To me, there is a foundation here now. There's an expectation in terms of what the standard is to not just make the playoffs, but all the things that go into it to be a team that can compete in the playoffs. And to answer your question directly, for me, we showed an inability to sustain our game, and that's the hardest thing to do in the league, is to sustain your game year over year throughout a season. To me, our foundation's in place to continue to build upon. Clearly, we have to continue to get better. We want to sustain our level of play year over year, and to me, we were unable to do that throughout our season, and that's what, to me, we've got to continue to raise the standard, continue to push our group to find that level of consistency that we can sustain play over long periods of time, and to overcome adversities. Those are things that I think I've talked about since the day I got here, and that's really where I feel that we're at. We took steps this season without question. For me, when I reflect on it, my message to a lot of the guys is, there's a foundation here now, but when I look at it, to me, we finished 16 out of 32 teams in the regular season. That's average, and we're not here to be average. We want to be better, and we will get better individually, collectively. Myself as a coach, our players individually, we'll have to continue to improve so we can get that level of sustainability that is required to compete in the league.
Sheldon, just sort of building off of that, what is your process during the summer, and how different is it going to be now for you that you have a full year under your belt? You understand the players that you've had. How do things kind of change for you here in that evaluation process?
Yeah, I would say with the experience, that the difference now would be that you have relationships with the players. You have firsthand knowledge, having worked with them and their personalities. You know their games more intimately, having worked with them and studied them throughout the season, not just an off season. To me, coming in for this season and training camp and such, it was about setting a foundation, a standard of things that I expect that are really important to me, that are maybe new in some cases to the players. Now they know what to expect, and now we can put layers on top of that and take the next step, which obviously is required, and that's about continuing to raise the bar. And part of the improving process is me improving as a coach, and with the information that I now have the experience with this group and you know, trying to build our team to the next level.
Fitzy, obviously, you know, you had a group that sustained a lot of injuries, and one of the things that we've talked about, particularly Sheldon, throughout the year is just, you know, overcoming those things when your back is against the wall, when you have adversity. From your point of view as a general, what did you see from your group in that aspect?
Well, the adversity that the group had, and, you know, Sheldon said it in the offseason last year, we want to create an environment where the standard of play, which he's talked about, is sustainable, whoever's not in your lineup or whoever's in your lineup. And I think when you look back, it's, you know, the style of play, and it just didn't change the mindset and where we had to go as a group, whoever was in the lineup or who wasn't in the lineup. So I give the players a lot of credit. I do think there's been a lot of growth. I am excited about the expectations that Sheldon and the standard he has set for this group that were probably a little, sticker shock, I guess the word, at the start or throughout the year, that they're used to, and they're going to be. This is what is expected, and I'm excited about that. And you can't control injuries, so it doesn't matter again who's in the lineup, who's not in the lineup. We create an identity. We play one way, the right way, a certain way.
Sheldon, would it be fair to characterize your season as kind of incomplete, knowing that with all the injuries that took place at the end of the season and then in the playoffs, what transpired there? How would you kind of characterize the season for yourself?
Well, I haven't coached for a little while here now, so I'd say it certainly is complete. But I guess what you're asking is whether we left some things on the table, and you think about the potential of the group had it been at full health. To me, you get caught up in some of that stuff. Yeah, it would have been nice to have our full lineup, whether it was the regular season or the playoffs. But things happen. There's a team, and the Dallas Stars have been on a run here without key players. And finding ways to overcome. That's the league. Some teams have great fortune and stay healthy, and you're thriving and rolling, and some teams are grinding and finding ways. To me, that's what it's about. Of course, you're hoping you have everybody available and everybody's at their best, but that's not necessarily the reality. You want to set up your team and your culture so that it can push through. And for a lot of this season, I liked how we managed that. We talked a number of times about key moments, down the stretch in the regular season where we really had to get points and beat teams head to head that were coming up from behind on us, and we were able to hold them off and secure our position. We look at even moments within the Carolina series that, to me, even though you lose in 5 games, there's some great moments in there of our team showing great resilience and the character of the group. You could see it growing through that process. So it's never a good feeling when you lose out, and you always feel like you've got more to give and all of that sort of stuff. But it is what it is, and it shows that we have a ways to go as a group. And to me, the injury part, you hope that you get great luck, but you got to hope that your culture and your foundation and your depth can carry you through.
And Tom, knowing what happened here at the end of the season, is there anything? And you made a lot of great moves at the trade deadline, but is there anything more after what you've seen that you need to do to get this team over the hump?
I like our group. My job is to continue to better the group. We've got a lot of decisions to make on certain players, whether we bring guys back, trade players. We won't be coming back with the same group, I can tell you that, because it wasn't good enough. So at the deadline, you weigh everything out, where we're at health-wise, where people, who was available, what are the acquisition costs. My mindset, and I think I said it after the deadline, was I felt, it was no secret what I was looking for at the deadline, what I felt this team needed positionally. And went hard at it. Made some real quality offers. However, we didn't get the people that we tried to get. And when you look at some of the additions that we did make, it was to offset some of the depth that we probably were lacking in certain positions. I look at bringing Brian Dumoulin and how well he played, and there were a lot of games where I was like, thank God we made that move. How much he helped us and helped this group continue to grow and believe and get to the playoffs. So, even the other forward positions, Cody Glass and Sprong, they gave us a little more depth than we had. With that being said, and I think I said it too, scoring goals is a hard thing to do in this league. It's not easy, but we had to figure out different ways to score because of personnel. Grinding goals out, getting to the net front, getting to the hard ice, getting in front of the goalie, screens, tips, things like that. And we needed certain guys to pick the pace up a bit as well.
Sheldon, you kind of mentioned it, that you really got to know your roster over the last 8 or 9 months, and the obvious impact players are, Nico Hischier, Bratt, and Jack Hughes. Is there anybody that really surprised you, maybe had more tools than you thought they did as you got to know more as a player?
Paul Cotter coming in here is a guy I learned a lot about, and he, to me, has got a lot of great tools as a player. That as he continues to get comfortable in the league and learn how to utilize the skills and tools that he has, I think he's a guy that I think can bring a lot and continue to develop. Excuse me, within the league, and he would be one. I think you look at any of the young players who just continue to grow and evolve, and you learn lots about them. Obviously, Luke Hughes coming in here, you can see the tools that he has, but I think he's a guy that can just become dominant at both sides of the puck and showed signs of that this season, and that's my expectation of him. That is, while he continues to be a guy that can push offense for us, that he can be reliable and can play against anybody at any time with his size and skating ability. So those are the things that stand out to me, and exciting to sort of have those things grow and continue to develop. But overall, the team has got lots of great players and great versatility for guys to move around and play different positions and help on both special teams. We saw Jack evolving as a penalty killer this season. To me, there's little things like that show the growth and diversity of the group, and it's all to do with the skill set. So I think we'll continue to look at and explore some of those things with all of our players.
Tom, what was your reaction to Jim Rutherford's very public comments about Quinn Hughes might want to play with his brothers, and is that an invitation to make a phone call this offseason?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on a comment of another team's player. You'd have to ask Jim, really, about the comment. For me, we're going to evaluate our own team, where we need to upgrade some things. And again, I can't comment on another player.
Tom, last summer when we spoke, it seemed like the primary focus was keeping the puck out of the net, defense and goaltending. You said you weren't worried about offense. So just in hindsight, looking back on the season, what was your assessment of how your offense performed?
I think players underachieved, for sure. I think players who have scored enough goals in this league to give assurance that we have depth scoring didn't. I said it just moments ago, scoring goals is extremely tough to do in this league. I bang my head against the wall every day wondering, really, what is depth scoring? I've asked my team, I asked my analytics group, tell me what it is. What is it the great teams in this league have in depth scoring? Is it 12, 20 goal scorers? No, we know that's not real. Is it 12, 10-plus goal scorers? Possibly. That's our goal. But again, it's being able to put the puck in the net at the appropriate time, consistently that we didn't see this year. So when I talked about depth scoring in the earlier or whatever last year, it was really the last on my to-do list because we had to get better in other areas. We had to keep the puck out of our net. We had to defend better. We had to move pucks up the ice, more effectively. And right now, and I've said it again, I think it proves that the tic-tac-toe plays aren't always there, and getting ugly goals is as good as a tic-tac-toe goal.
And in light of the depth scoring, you add a guy like Arseny Gritziuk yesterday or 2 days ago. Just what are your expectations of him coming in here from Russia?
Well, he's going to get an opportunity to showcase his skill set. When you look at his numbers in the KHL compared to other players who have produced over there, he's pretty much a point a game guy this year. Had some injuries. Highly skilled. Not overly big, but not small. Pretty sturdy. He's going to get an opportunity. I'm excited. I think we're all excited to see one of our own come over here and get an opportunity. And just hope he takes advantage of it. But he's going to get an opportunity to play on our team.
And just touching on the injuries, 3 of the last 4 seasons, Jack's had season-ending injury there. Is there any long-term concern with him to stay on the ice and build around him as your centerfold?
Concern that's a strong word. It's not that you don't think of that, but when you have a top player like that not playing, no one plays 100% of the games, but the top guys pretty much play the majority of the games. I'd like to think Jack's shoulder injuries are behind him now, but you never know. I don't go into a roster build thinking, can we rely on so and so or so and so? Jack knows the work that's ahead of him this summer and where he needs to go from a strength wise and in a body makeup. And again, it's not just snapping your fingers. There's a process to that, and he's been going through it, and we've seen him grow. We've seen his body mature from his first year, his second year, and here we are 6 years later. He's got that man body, but I don't worry about it. Probably easier to say I don't worry about it than worry about it, meaning because it's happened. Injuries are a funny thing. You just sometimes you have bad luck.
And just given how well the goaltending situation turned out this season, is there any appetite to keep Jake Allen here to run it back with Jacob?
Yeah, for sure. We liked our tandem. We felt it was one of the better tandems in the league. You look at Jake's numbers were very, very good. His professionalism, the way he interacted with Markey as the backup is very important in a tandem. They get along very well. They respect one another, and but for sure, his agent and I are going to discuss, where his future is.
Sheldon, just speaking with Daniel Sprong, he said he thinks you might be his favorite coach he's ever played for. Is he a player you want to see come back, maybe get a little bit more out of, and do you see an everyday NHLer in that player?
Well, I see a guy with tremendous talent, and he's proven that in his time in the league. He's had some holes in his game, and things he's needed to work on away from the puck. But it's he can score goals, and he has been able to do that. It's ironic how it all played out here. He's a guy that I actually thought played quite well defensively and quite hard, and puck didn't seem to fall for him. But he makes plays. He moves the puck through the neutral zone. You watch his skills in practice. He's got NHL skills, not just NHL skills, but high-end NHL skills in terms of finishing abilities and shooting. So, Fitz brought him in. I thought it was a great move for us, given where we were at. We needed somebody to come in and sort of pop for us offensively, and we're trying to give him every opportunity to do so. So, I enjoyed working with him. It didn't work out in the end the way that we would like it to, but that to me is it was a short sample, and like with all of our free agents, I'm sure Fitz is going to look at them all, but Spronger to me, he's got the skill set, and I thought he helped us at a time, even though it didn't necessarily show up on the score sheet. Helped us through a tough time in the regular season, and And I would like to think he's going to get an opportunity in the league again.
Tom, just curious if you could maybe update us on Kovacevic and where he is right now, if he had surgery or.
He had surgery today, successful surgery. Time frame is he will not be at the start of training camp.
Fitzy, I know you do a deep dive in the hockey operations department every summer. What does that process look like, whether it's evaluations of your analytics, your staff, things like that? What's kind of the process throughout the summer?
Well, it's a good question. It's, I think the evaluation of staff members in my hockey ops department are ongoing. It's not something we just, the year's over, let's go evaluate everybody. It's a constant evaluation. More importantly, it's a constant, who's growing, who's getting better, who's bringing value to the table. And it's my job to have these people under me blossom and continue to grow their skill sets, their minds. I always talk about if you don't have a growth mindset, you're in the wrong place. If you're not willing to get better or challenge yourself, and I have that in all my departments, and we do challenge each other. There's no groupthink. It's we push each other and we challenge one another, and we've got a lot of headstrong people, which is great. But at the end of the day, it's my job to take all the information and make a calculated decision, whether it's on personnel or coaching last year. And go from there. So it's a constant evaluation, but the more important thing is allowing these people under me to continue to grow.
Sheldon, at the end of the regular season, there were still players saying that the team was trying to find its own identity. Do you feel like the effort that you guys put forth in the Carolina series kind of helped to show what that identity that you'd like to see on this team?
I think there's elements of that, for sure. I think we found another level within that series to be able to compete and ultimately fall short, obviously, but there's signs in there. I think for me, if we're really pinpointing, you're the second half of the season with the injuries and such, you kind of lose your way a little bit, and you're trying to reestablish an identity when you're losing key people. But for me, that stretch of time right before Christmas was a great indication of what we're capable of doing and what we want it to look like. We weren't able to sustain that for long enough periods of time, which is why it was as hard as it was for us down the stretch to make the playoffs and then ultimately to compete in the playoffs. But there's going to be plenty of clips, plenty of images and illustrations of what our identity looks like, and that'll continue to evolve as our players improve and as our team changes through an off season. But like I said, I think there's real good chunks of time in the season that are representative of what we want this group to be about, and we've got to find ways to sustain it for longer periods.
Just to add to that, from our relationship and as a partner, I'll continue to challenge the staff and Sheldon in particular to what was the difference from January on versus, because we were a really, really good team to start, and to me that's the standard. We saw the team play at a high level, and that's where we know where we can get to. And again, now it's the growth of sustaining that educating the players and them understanding and being in that experience is only going to get better. But when I look back and say, look at the first half, and we're 20, whatever 20 games or 7 games in a row of holding teams is under 20 shots, that's impressive. But we never won more than 3 games in a row. It was like, okay, these are areas where we've got to find answers, and how do we improve? So, again, it's not just Sheldon, and it's when you ask these questions, it's us, like, because I'm asking the same questions, but I also want to be the person. I want to be a person who can help find the solutions.
Tom, do you foresee Lenny Haminaho coming over to North America next season?
We will be making an announcement shortly, ironically, but I do.
Also, I know you've been a big advocate for neck guards, rightfully so. I'm glad Casey is okay. Have you taken any steps to try and mandate them for the team?
it's hard because of, it's a collected bargained thing between the league and the PA, and I just want people and players to understand, one, what's available to them, protection-wise, and two, the potential results of not being protected. I've worked with, and I'm working with a couple of companies that have come to me to endorse and help them, put their product, push it forward. And it's not just the NHL or pro hockey. To me, it's youth hockey. It's, we have the luxury of having the best doctors in the world at our fingertips, in games for whatever may happen. But youth hockey players and teams don't. So why not protect yourself? And if you're going to protect yourself with, some of the things that are mandated, make sure they're quality, that they actually will protect you. Because I've said over and over again, no parent should go through what we went through watching our son, get cut like he did.
I know you touched on Gritsuk before. Does adding him change your plan for free agency at all? Do you feel like you're able to bank on him performing as a top 6 or top 9 player, or is that more of like a bonus to you?
It's probably a bonus. Again, you don't know how he'll react when he comes over. It's a whole new environment. Ice size, system-wise will be different. But he'll get an opportunity. But as far as personnel's concerned, there is a cap, as you know, and you only have so much money. And how do we piece this puzzle together with the available finances we have? But that's my job, and it's to continue to build. And knowing that we've got a couple of young players coming over, and even a Shane LeChance that has been added to the mix of young players, that's where you want to go. You want players like this, you young players, to step up and grab spots. And that's what the good teams do.
For Sheldon, how much does Nemeth's situation just speak to how important confidence is for a player?
Yeah, it's really important. It's confident players are usually thriving and feeling good. There's also the part of it, you have to earn your confidence. You got to put in the work. You've got to gain experience, and I think Nemeth went through a lot of that this year, whether it was from the start of the season in training camp and not quite being ready for the level and the standard and the expectations. To going down to the minors and finding his way through it and coming back. And I thought he just kept getting better and better with the more experience that he got. And I think he leaves with a much better understanding of what the league is about and what's required and what the standard is here now versus what maybe he came into. It's a different circumstance, and he's got to earn his confidence every single day. And then as a coaching staff, we've got to give him the appropriate opportunities that, meet the work that he puts in and allow his talents to get going.
Tom, to just kind of pick up.
Thank you. Fitzy, you did mention Johnny Kovacevic having a surgery. One of the things that we heard about after everything wrapped up was Jesper Bratt and how he's doing with his shoulder. Do you mind updating the group just how he's doing and sort of what the prognosis is there for him, and a season he had with clearly was dealing with something there?
Well, it's something he's been dealing with for multiple seasons, quite honestly. He his shoulder versus, Jack last year's shoulder were different. You can play with what he has. Timo did for years, Other players who played here in the past have had this type of injury or nagging, ailment. He typically, what we do at the end of the year, he gets an MRI on the shoulder and see where it's at. And, in the past, it's not getting any worse. Here, they found some, the joint itself was, a little bit worse. And with that, Jesper just made the decision, his decision to go ahead and do the surgery. He'll be ready for training camp. He'll be 100%. With the Olympics next year too, we also thought of that. Not only just getting off to a good start for our team and helping us, win games. Maybe he's one hit from, getting it done. So, like Timo last year, he didn't have to get it done, chose to get it done, and we just it was his choice, and we supported that.
And then on Dilly, obviously, you think of neck injury, it's scary. How is he doing maybe mentally? Just, it was a scary incident for everybody, I would imagine, the way he described it.
He was. I mean, he talked about it and not knowing, from where we were sitting up top at the arena and coming down, just thinking, was it a concussion? When he skated off, at first I thought maybe it was his knee. But when I came down, when they took him off at that moment during the game, and I came down and saw him, and he was with the doctors, it was eye-opening to what actually happened to him, and how quickly he came back and he was normal and wanted to play. But he's going through a process right now of gathering information on the surgery and who he needs to talk to. He's probably overwhelmed with information right now, and probably confused versus less is more. But whatever he decides to do with his neck, we do know it's a quicker recovery, and he'll be ready for training camp.
And then Sheldon, you spoke to it a little bit before, but obviously you have conversations with your players when things wrap up for the season, and I imagine you're getting their thoughts, you're sharing yours. Do you, chime in with them during the season, the off season rather, and do you check in about their thoughts once they've had time to reflect? What is sort of that partnership like when it comes to the summer and your group of players?
Yeah, sure. It's last summer you're checking in. For me, it's establishing a relationship and introducing yourself, giving them a sense of what to expect. Now they know what to expect, and the relationship is established, and I think we can dig deeper, and I can sort of circle back and give them my thoughts and put together some packages for them to set some goals and things to work on through the summer coming into training camp. That's on my end, and on their end, just give them more opportunity to communicate their thoughts on the season and where the team needs to go and some of our processes and these sorts of things, especially with your leaders. So yeah, I think the off season is an important time to get those things right and get aligned by the time you come back together again.
Tom, just kind of going back to Nemec there, we spoke to Sheldon about the end of his season, how encouraging it was. How encouraging was it for you as the man who drafted him to see him take those steps, and it was more than just the goal, but he stepped up as a reliable defender. And what is his future here?
Well, it's bright for sure, and I was really happy for him. It's been a process. When he came over as an 18-year-old, even though he was playing pro hockey in Slovakia, it was a big step for him. Meritocracy is real here, and we're not just handing out jobs. You have to earn it. The way he played for a lot of last year was encouraging. Wasn't expecting him to play the amount of games he played, but that's the reality of injuries and the need for the position. And I think the injury this year coming into training camp really set him back, and I think it was eye-opening for him with the new coach and expectations and standards that a 20-year-old at the time needed to understand, and it takes time. But watching him the last few games of the regular season, and then obviously the playoffs, you saw the upside, you saw what can be. But it's up to him right now. He's got a huge off season. He's not going to the Worlds. His conditioning and his off ice training will start soon. We'll monitor that from here and have people over there visiting him. But very encouraging. So I was really happy for him.
And just touching on Luke's injury, is it? It's another shoulder injury. Is it something more like Brat's injury, or is it closer to his brother's injury?
No, it was more like Jesper's.
So no concern moving forward for him. Okay, and I think I had more here for you. When assessing your blue line, and thinking about a guy like Nemec, who is he going to be full time next year or not? Where do you stand with a guy like Brian Dumoulin, who you brought in, really encouraging performance? Like, is an appetite to bring him back, and how do you hold that line between blocking a younger guy from stepping up and taking a job?
It's a real question. It's a good problem to have because of the depth and the talent we have on the back end and the different mix of defensemen that we do have. Brian played extremely well, and I think he showed the rest of the hockey world that he's a playoff player, and he thrives in the playoffs. You never say never, I guess. When as the summer progresses and we put together a plan moving forward of really what do we want to look like and how do we get to that. I guess you never know, but. He was fantastic as he came in, better than I thought, and like I said, very grateful that we went out and got him.
Sheldon, can you speak to the importance of your captain this year? Heischer's kind of a quiet, mild-mannered guy, but what was his importance to you and your staff your first year here in Jersey?
Well, it was huge. I mean, I guess the first thing is the on ice. The on ice component of it, just his play. I've said it many times before that I don't think I gave him an easy shift the entire season, in terms of matchups and deployment and face-offs and starting in his own end and power play, penalty kill, all of these sorts of things. He took on so much and to me did a stand-up job. I think. There's tremendous players that are nominated for the Selke this year, and all are deserving. But Nico's right there with those guys, and to me, that's as his coach, especially, it's evident, and has got a long future. I think of being considered for such an award and others because he still found a way to. To score at a high rate for us as well. So. Tremendous player that I'm fortunate to have in terms of his leadership and his ability as a captain. I think I was really impressed. I came in, you mentioned it, being mild-mannered, and I think he's still growing and evolving into the role, but I saw a guy that spoke up when needed to say something on the bench, kind of sets the tone for the team at different times. And I think the great support that Fitz brought in for him last offseason in terms of the leadership and the veterans that could support him and grow the leadership group, I think really empowered him to do so. Those guys see great abilities in him, both on the ice and the ability to lead. And, he was a tremendous asset for me and our team, and fortunate to have him. And obviously it's going to be a big reason why this team, can continue to build on its foundation.
Obviously a lot of the injuries were unavoidable freak accidents, but are you satisfied with the medical staff and processes in place?
I am. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a contact sport, and injuries like we've had this year are unpreventable, in my opinion, because of the contact that the game is all about. I've said this before, you judge people. I was asked about staff members. One of the areas where I think rings true and has a lot of merit to it is when players leave here and go to other teams and their agents call me and tell me how good they had it here versus other places, or when people come in to New Jersey and really are blown away with the care that they get and the amount of people and quality that we have to take care of our players and the processes that we have in place. No, I'm very comfortable.
And Sheldon, individually, Timo and Jack both seem to excel on the power play, but when they've been on it together, it hasn't gone as well. Is there anything you could pinpoint as to why, and is that something where you feel like they're both talented enough where they will or need to figure it out eventually?
Well, I think there's things there that we can look at. I think Timo, the way that he stepped up for our group, through the end of the season was tremendous, and shows, that he's a versatile guy that we can use in different spots. So we'll always be looking at that. Obviously a big part of it, it's with Jack and Brat. They both sort of play those flanks and do a tremendous job at it, are elite at it. So, Timo does a lot of his best work there with his finishing ability in that flank, and we tried him in different spots, didn't go as well. So that's something for us to look at, and as our team continues to evolve, then you can You can look at different things as you know what your roster looks like. But to me, Timo is the guy that really showed that he can deliver for the group. And you know, I gained a lot of respect for his ability to do so and step up at really important times. You know, the puck didn't fall for him as much in the playoffs, but the level of chances he's able to generate, you know, I want to believe those things are going to really fall for him, and he's going to be able to put together a consistent season of finishing, and you know, certainly will warrant us as a coaching staff to be challenged to find a way to make those things work.
Tom, I'm just curious, as you and your group look ahead and plan for free agency after the success that St. Louis had with offer sheets last offseason, are you anticipating that being a much more widespread event moving forward around the league now?
I do, actually. You know, it's a tool to improve your team, and but you got to have the one, you have the cap space. Two, you probably have to strategically target players to do it, knowing full well that there's no way a team can match because they don't have the cap space. A lot of teams have a lot more cap space. I think teams will try to do it. I just don't know how successful they'll do it. And I think the most important part of offer sheets are the player has to want to move. He's got to want to come to your team. You know, so there's that period where, you know, RFAs you can talk to them. They probably have to initiate it themselves.
Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Have a
all.
great summer.